Hi, this is Tim Santoni, and welcome to the Santoni Spotlight. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Marla Merhab Robinson is joining us. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, maybe give our viewers a little bit of context on kind of your professional career and what led you to this point.
Well, sometimes I think it was because of the family curse. My mother's an attorney and her two brothers were attorneys.
Okay.
But I never intended to become an attorney. I graduated from college at a time very much like our last Great Recession where there were no jobs. I was fortunate to get a job, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do forever. So I went to the law school and applied, and they begged me to come because they remembered my mom. And so that's how I started, and I got a job right away with one of her clients as in-house. He said he would keep me in-house if he would help me pay for law school if I would stay with him. So by the time I got out, he had merged his company with a public company. So I graduated and was an executive VP of the public company right after law school. I was very fortunate. 3.5 years there, then we sold that company. Then I spent 6.5 years at the firm my mother and her two brothers started. Only one brother was still there. And then my children were of that age where I wanted to be able to take off whenever I wanted to go to sporting events. And so I started my own firm. That was 25 years ago.
And so tell our viewers a little bit about your current firm, the makeup of the practice, specialization, and kind of what your clients look like.
So the firm is a business transactional and estate planning firm. I have a partner that does estate planning, two associates that do business transactional work like I do, which means we form corporations, we form partnerships, we form LLCs, every business contract. It's easier to say what we don't do. We don't do intellectual property. And then the estate planning side does everything, wills, trusts, everything related to estate planning.
Gotcha. So, I think when it comes to law firms and attorneys, I think people get a little bit confused or they're unsure of, what makes the most sense. So maybe give us kind of the top 2 or 3 triggers that maybe business owners or your clients, depending on their level or role, if it's a, in-house legal counsel or a business owner or an HR person, that typically in like the last 12 to 24 months, if they're reaching out to you and saying, hey, Marla, this happened or this situation arised, and they're smart enough to know they're out of their comfort zone, and they're reaching out to you or you and your team for some kind of insight and perspective and some guidance on those issues.
Well, we get everything from people who want to start a business and don't know where to start, what type of entity should I be, what should I do, to others who have said, well, I started with LegalZoom, and they bring it in and show us, and we say, well, you started, but you didn't finish. Unfortunately, that's what happens a lot. A lot of people start with a CPA forming their entity, and then they throw their book and organizational records into a drawer and don't maintain them the way you're supposed to have the protections to get that you're wanting to get. So everything from starting to finishing. So we have business owners who come in and say, I'm done, I want to sell. We help them do that. We have others who come in and say, I want to buy something. We help them with that. And others who say, let's just close it down. It's not working, let's close it down, and we do that as well. We don't like that. But to your point about HR, because all of our clients are business owners, they're all employers as well. So we all do employment law on the transactional side, not in the estate planning side, but on the transactional side, we all counsel on employment law as well.
Gotcha. So obviously in our background doing investigations and background checks, we know how complicated the laws are for California employers as it relates to hiring, firing, laying off, terminating. What's your take on the new Dynamex ruling and going forward in 2020 about employers and subcontractors and how they're going to deal with that? What are the rumblings you're hearing from employers, and what kind of non-legal advice are you kind of giving?
If you Google the case AB5 or Dynamex, what I've been told is Dynamics, not Dynamex, but the attorneys that actually were in charge of the case, it's game changing. It's a money grab. If you read the case, it's 88 pages long, and the court says right at the beginning, this is all about money. We want the money coming into the state. We want to protect the workers, even though the workers don't want protection. So we call it the permanent employment of employment lawyers because there's so much to do. It's very, very difficult because people who have been operating under the independent contractor classification for so long are coming in, and we're having to tell them, you can't do this anymore. And both the worker and the employer want it to be that classification, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
And the penalties are very large. The risk, and a lot of people aren't talking about this, but a couple of years ago, the California legislature changed the law to require that, or to provide that there's personal liability for wage and hour violations. So if you have misclassified someone, that's a wage and hour violation. the owners are responsible, and the law is so broad, it could be even the supervisors personally liable, which is the whole reason we have entities, is to protect against personal liability.
Right. That's why you're setting up corporations for your clients to help kind of contain that risk.
Exactly. So that's something that's not as talked about as much as dynamics should be, but it's where we can finally get people to go over the edge and make the change, because we can point out, look, this is just your personal liability here if you don't fix this.
Right. That cost, though, the cost impact of compliance and converting them over has got to be it's severely.
It's huge.
Who's going to pay for that?
Yeah.
The customers or clients or.
Yeah.
So, Marla, in your practice, what, in the last 6-12 months, give maybe our viewers a sense of a client you worked with or a case that worked, whether there was a really good outcome or there's a situation that you really are passionate about and you enjoy doing. Maybe it was an ideal outcome for the client, but you guys did everything you could do on their behalf to kind of optimize the results, or maybe it was a lesson learned for that client that that'd be fun to share, right?
Oh my gosh. Well, we don't do cases anymore. We used to have a litigation department that handled cases. So all of our matters are transactions. And the best transactions we can handle are purchasing or selling a business, because everybody's happy usually. You got a happy buyer and a happy seller. That's unless there's a divorce or an illness or a death. Then you might not have that same. But even the lawyers on the other side, you're both working to get to the same place. We have a celebratory dinner at the end. And
isn't that how it works in litigation too?
No, everybody wants different things, right? And in employment litigation, as you know, because you've done a lot of work with us and helping us with investigations, even if you win, you don't get your attorney's fees. So it's a no-win.
Not a win.
One of the reasons we shut down our litigation department, we didn't want to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most fun work we do is the mergers and acquisition work, where we're buying or selling businesses. But it's also fun to start a business. When you have business owners come in and say, hey, we have this great idea, this is what we want to do, should we have a corporation or an LLC? And we go through that with them, and then we get to watch them grow. We get to watch them, get bigger and bigger, and their revenues grow. And with all that, you need legal help. And
sure.
Our differentiating factor from other law firms is the lawyers in our firm that are providing business advice have been involved in business in one aspect or another. For example, my first 3.5 years with the public company, I had a board of directors I had to report to. I know how to read a financial statement, I have a business degree. So we didn't just go from high school to college to law school and then start telling business owners how to run their business, which we never do. We just give them our advice and our opinion. It's always their decision.
Yeah, that's great. I think that sometimes the typical situations where there's not the implied business situation, the risk, the revenue, the loss is the focus of the business owner, where the lawyer's job is typically to mitigate risk and put up all these legal arguments as to why or why not to do that and formulate an argument. But when business, it's not quite the same way, right? It's negotiating well and doing what's best for the impact of the business, and there may be some legal ramifications of that. But
so I can give you a perfect example of that.
Perfect.
On the employment law side, I had a law firm that I was representing, that and they had an employee who is in her 60s, a legal secretary in a litigation department, which requires calendaring, a lot of very high risk of malpractice steps and tasks. And she was not performing them. She was making mistakes. But they came to me for advice because they were afraid if they terminated her, they were going to get sued for age discrimination. I said, well, let's weigh these risks. Would you rather be sued for age discrimination when you have proof that you were really terminating her because she did things wrong, or malpractice? Legal malpractice is a much greater risk. So that's exactly how we work on a day-to-day basis, or try to, is a risk analysis.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Is that I think that the short-sightedness is like there's always the fear that you could be sued at any time for anything, right?
Right.
And you can just document best practices, but if you lose the client or you have a malpractice suit or all that stuff is sometimes takes a back seat to the fear of the legal system, right?
Yeah.
I mean, well, before we let you go, Marla, maybe you could share a little bit about when you're not practicing law, running your firm, where do you like to spend your free time? And
I like to spend my free time with my new grandbaby.
How old?
She's 8 months old.
Oh, wow.
Today. She's 8 months old today. And my husband and I like to travel. So we travel a lot. Little road side trips and cruises, all of that. We like to do that. And then our day-to-day fun things is we like to play cards and drink wine. We're foodies and winies.
There you go. Always looking for a good next great place to eat. So what's the best new food place that you found in Orange County lately that's like a go-to?
Wow, new.
Or it could be old, I guess.
I haven't been to anything new except I don't know if you've ever been at Marche Mardon. They used to be in South Coast Plaza. They closed down for a while and they reopened in Newport Coast.
Oh.
They're fantastic. One of the
We'll definitely link up all of Marla's information in the description, the show notes below. If you have any questions for us, let us know. Marla would be happy to reach out. Again, thanks for taking the time to come on and sharing some insights. And
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the good job you guys do for us with all of our investigations. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks.
you.